tree. Jason sat in the middle of the group drinking homemade wine from a goblet. The men were dressed in shirts that looked like they were made from socks and shabby trousers tied at the waist with twine. The women were wearing full-length dresses, buttoned up to the neck, and scarves covering their heads. The wine was strong and he could feel it going to his head.
So ye all, what's the idea behind this place? Why have you all turned your backs on Mother Laugh?
A young girl shyly brought a decanter over to him and topped up his goblet.
Thanks, darling.
The men exchanged glances. One of the older ones answered his question. Well, my friend, we happen to believe that modern society has lost its way. We think that living in the way we do in simplicity and poverty is preferable to the excess and greed that characterizes life in the world today.
Yeah, well, I don't get it. There's so much to life that you're missing out on. Look at your women, for instance. All real cute but covered up like nuns in a convent.
He addressed the group, who sat huddled together with their eyes downcast.
You know, sweeties, where I come from, women aren't afraid to show off their bodies. They wear tight trousers and low-cut tops, outfits that reveal the curves that the good Lord gave them. Ladies, you need a new look. Put on some lipstick, ditch the shapeless smocks, wear something more flattering. Any guy, if he was in the mood for some loving, would he be turned off by the way you all look?
There were outraged expressions amongst the men. Silence! One blurted out. No more of this obscene talk. How dare you speak to our women like this? We will not tolerate it. Jason, I would like to tell you a story. The leader, wearing a full-length robe, spoke for the first time. First of all, I must tell you there are spirits roaming this house since it was built 100 years ago. Some of those spirits are benign, but others are angry and wish to cause harm. My story concerns a man who came to visit this very place hundreds of years ago and stayed in the exact spot where we are now. Like you, that man showed disrespect. He stole a purse from the very person who'd shown him charity and given him a meal and bed for the night. Would you like to know what happened to him, Jason?
Sure.
Jason drained the rest of his glass. The tree saw to him, Jason.
What do you mean the tree saw to him?
Well, there was a tree outside his bedroom. It stood close to the wall of the house, and some of the branches brushed against his window. He was woken up in the night by a scraping sound coming from outside, and when he lighted the wick to see what it was, he couldn't believe his eyes. A branch from the tree wrapped in vines was coming in the window slowly but surely. He got up and tried to escape out the door. Those very vines reached out and got to him first, wrapping themselves around his waist. He was pulled back to the bed against his will. I feel I should warn you, Jason. The next part of the story is quite gruesome.
Don't concern yourself with me, sir. Carry on.
Well, those vines made their way into his body via his mouth. They wandered down his throat, scraping his insides and making him gag. They squeezed his internal organs, causing extreme pain. I've been told you could hear his blood-curdling screams for miles around. Anyway, that tree continued on a relentless path, spreading to every part of his body, but keeping him alive until the very end. The next morning when the maid came into the room, the sight before her was truly horrific. He lay there naked, vines emerging from his eye sockets, and his eyes lying on the bed beside his body like two white blood-stained marbles. Vines also trailed from his ears with bits of his brain scattered among the leaves. You could see the outline of leaves and stems pressing against his stomach. It was a sorry mess. The coffin lid had to be kept closed at his laying out. Jason staggered upstairs to bed, laughing drunkenly to himself. What a joke. He'd never heard such a ridiculous story in all his life. His room was small and simple, like a monk's cell, but at least he had a window. He laughed again when he saw there was a tree outside with branches that brushed against the glass.
Think you can freak me out? Well, it sure ain't working.
There was quite a storm brewing, but it hardly registered with Jason. He fell fast asleep the second his head hit the pillow. However, he was woken up abruptly, and a heavy weight crashed on top of him. Leaves brushed against his face and filled up his mouth. He screamed at the top of his lungs.
God damn it, get away from me! Leave me alone! No, please!
The following morning, the doctor pronounced him dead. The poor man had a heart attack, he said. It was most likely brought on by the fright he got when the tree fell through the window. I've no doubt he would have survived the impact. He shook his head. It's what you call a freak accident. When he had left, the leader addressed the members. The medical profession may think it's a freak accident, he said, but we know the truth. Jason disrespected members of our society, and the tree took care of him.
Clones. Professor Rosenhoff stood in front of a select group of academics and close associates to begin his speech. Today I would like to share an exciting secret that I have kept from the world for 20 years. In my capacity as DNA research scientist, I was involved in a project back in 1990, the results of which will have major implications in the field of medicine and in human reproduction. You see, my friends, I am responsible for creating not one, but 15 human clones. Today I wish to share this accomplishment with all of you. There was excited chatter in the room, and several hands shot up. Professor Rosenhoff, who are these people cloned from? Was it the same person? The professor smiled. Yes, they were cloned from the same person. Myself. I thought that they could do worse than to have my athletic physique, and of course my keen intellect. Professor, are they now all studying science at university? Well, I intend to find that out very soon. They were adopted by childless couples in different parts of the country, and the policy was that there would be no contact for 20 years. But now that time has passed, and we will be getting in touch with each and every one of them. In fact, we will arrange for them to meet for the first time. It will be some social experiment, I can tell you. Professor Rosenhoff's secretary, Angela Grimsworth, was given the job of contacting the 15 young men. Do not tell them the full story, just that you have news about their parentage and that they must visit us at the Institute to find out more, she was told. However, the task proved to be a lot more difficult than she had thought. The first set of adopted parents turned out to have passed away, and the person who answered the phone would not give any more information, hanging up on Angela twice. Another, it was clear, had become estranged from their son. I never want to see him again, she was told. Never! I couldn't even begin to tell you the pain and suffering is heaped on our family. But Angela couldn't believe what she was hearing. I know I brought him up, but that boy just isn't right. My other children will testify to that. Angela didn't have any luck with the next call she made either. He won't be going anywhere, dear, she was told. I don't think they'll be releasing him from prison anytime soon. But why? Grievous bodily harm, and the guy he almost killed was supposed to be his best friend. They had a fight over a candy bar, can you believe that? Of the 15 young men, Angela was only able to get 8 to come to the Institute. She discussed it with James, Dr. Rosenhoff's assistant. I don't understand it, she said. None of them seem to be particularly academic or sporty. 2 of them are in prison, one for murdering its parents in cold blood. More are disowned by their parents who threw them out as soon as it was allowed. They don't seem similar to Mr. Rosenhoff in any way. And have you seen the way they look? They have sallow skin, not fair. James looked worried. They should be exactly the same as Dr. Rosenhoff if they are his clones, he said. I remember the day we put the project into action so well. We took DNA samples from Dr. Rosenhoff for insertion into the eggs. It was a straightforward process. We laughed at how simple it was. I remember saying how wonderful it would be to populate the world with such gifted people. That day we were also undertaking research into the DNA of serial killer Buckaroo Bob, who was on death row at the time. Oh my God! They both cried out at once. You can't, said Angela. You can't have mixed them up. The 8 young men had been shown to a room in the Institute specially set up for their first meeting. Dr. Rosenhoff had instructed that she be comfortable and have tea and coffee facilities provided. What am I going to do? Angela asked James. The doctor is unavailable today. He's attending a conference and he told me to break the news to them about their origins. I can't tell them that they were cloned from Buckaroo Bob, but I can't lie to them either. James grabbed her arm. Tell them they've been cloned. Don't tell them who from. You can always pretend you don't know. Angela made her way down the corridor and stopped outside the door, which had a sign attached to it with the words, "Private Function." She waited for a moment to get her speech clear in her head. "You are all very special. It is the first time that a human has been cloned, and I imagine it must be strange, but also exhilarating, to find there are other people alive with exactly the same DNA as yourselves." Then she looked down and saw a large red stain on the carpet slowly spreading from beneath the door. A cold chill gripped her. She reached for the handle in slow motion. She heard a scream and realized it was herself. There wasn't one person alive in the room. Guts and brains were splattered on the wall. Limbs were hacked and thrown around the floor. Two of the corpses were decapitated. There was a bloodied axe placed against the wall. After she had vomited her lunch all over the carpet, she saw the message written on the mirror in blood. "There's only one Buckaroo Bob. I don't do cheap imitations." "That psycho Buckaroo Bob killed them all." James had arrived in behind her. She turned around. "Buckaroo Bob died in the electric chair in 1999. I can hear the wind howling on the moors as I go to my bedchamber. The light from my lamp is dim, and I lift my petticoat to avoid tripping on the staircase. As I change into my cap and nightgown, the master's shouting drifts up from downstairs. I'm right afraid the drink has begun to take over him, because he's become more and more wild and aggressive of late. Now I hear another voice. "Heathcliff, you watch your tongue." I'm gripped with the fear that another physical fight might be about to start. It was only last week that one such visit ended in fisticuffs. I worried that one of them would not come out of the encounter alive. It took some time to clean up the blood after he left, I can tell you that. There is a crashing sound. I can only hope that the master has not picked up the poker as he did last time. I shiver. The pane in my window has started to rattle when the terrible wind and the sound of the unsettled horses' whinnies is ringing out in the night air. I lean over and extinguish the wick and pull the quilt around me. The winter chill is setting in. I lie facing the window, willing sleep to come. It is the only escape from my troubled and weary existence. I'm drifting into an uneasy sleep when I'm wakened once again by a knocking sound. I lift my head and the knocking happens again. Sweet Lord, there is someone at the window. I hesitate. I can hear the wind howling outside. I do not wish to allow it into my chamber. But there is a third knock, and reluctantly I pull the handle towards me, and I am pushed backwards by the strength of the gust. Then I feel an hand on my arm, and I find myself looking at a spectral face which is not of this world. "Help me, Lord," I cry. Words are coming from the face's mouth, strange and unfamiliar words. "Oh my God, it's worked! This is so cool!" "Please, I'm a God-fearing woman," I beg. "I attend church weekly and I read the Bible as much as I can." "Am I in Wuthering Heights?" "Aye," I say, "but please, there is no reason to pick an humble servant like myself." "I can't believe I'm haunting you. I'm so thrilled." The spectre is smiling. "Please leave me alone and find a sinner, I beg of you." "Well, there's no need to be scared. I chose this place because I wanted to talk to you about Wuthering Heights, the novel. I'm studying it for my BA in English Literature. I've come from the year 2020, and I want to discuss the outdated lifestyle of the women featured in what is considered a literary masterpiece of our times." "You make no sense to me," I say. "How can I talk to you if you don't understand your way of speaking?" "But I wanted to ask you." The face continues talking, ignoring my protest. "The women in this book are repressed, in my opinion. Take Kathy. She's such a strong personality, but her whole life seems to revolve around Heathcliff. She's no job, no female friends. Having a man is all that matters to her. No wonder she goes mad. It seems to me that her life is very limited. I mean, in the 21st century, there's a lot less importance attached to relationships with men. We 21st century gals like romance, don't get me wrong. But we've got so much more going on in our lives. We are so much more independent now. We pay our own way. We don't need men." "I realize this spirit is benign. Well, my dear, that is not the way for women living in these times. All that is open to a woman is to marry well, and hope to live comfortably from her husband's wealth. Kathy was such a passionate woman. Her love for Heathcliff consumed her. Let me tell you, there will always be love of that kind. You yourself may not have experienced it yet, but it may happen to you one day, and it will not matter how independent you are, or how full a life you are leading. I can tell you, then you will understand Kathy and Heathcliff's story better." there isn't much opportunity for love in the year 2020, comes the spirit's reply. We have a pandemic, you see. A deadly virus is sweeping the world, and everyone has to keep away from each other. If Cathy and Heathcliff were living in these times, they wouldn't be able to give each other as much as a hug. But folk is meant to be together. It goes against nature for them not to mix with one another. In 2020, we must avoid other people. It's called social distancing. Even if I wanted to have romance in my life, there's no chance of it happening this year. Now that I think of it, I'm jealous I'm not living in the 19th century. I could go to a ballroom dance and have several gentlemen sweep me around the floor. You seem like a young lass, I said. You've time to find romance. You must wait out this difficult time. I'm sure the world will put itself to rights eventually. As I spoke, there was a loud clap of thunder, and during the ensuing flash of lightning, the grip fell away from my arm. I looked around, but there was nothing to be seen, except trees, waving in the wind, and driving rain forming puddles on the ground. Once again, I settled back into my bed, and pulled the quilt tightly around myself, praying for sleep. I must rise early to clean the range.